Alright, today we're going to work on some sketching from these last couple weeks. First thing I need to do is make sure my work area is clear. And I'm going to make sure my pencils are all ready. So I got my number 2 pencil right here. So this is actually a sketching pencil. You can tell by it doesn't have a cap. It's meant for just getting your ideas out there. And the other thing that I'm going to need to have is my ruler or straight edge or anything that has a straight side to it. You can guarantee is a straight side for the sketches that we're coming up and doing. If you are looking at doing the sketches, hopefully these videos will help you out, and we'll get you guys going in the video. All right, we'll see you in a second. All right, so we're looking at part 1 today, or part 1 for this section of the video, which is the 3 objects. It's a tall block, the small triangle, and the cylinder. The cylinder is going to be a little bit difficult. We're going to be able to do it and everything, but it's different at how we set it up down here. So what I'm going to be doing is we're going to be basing it off of just rough sizes. So if I go right here to here, that would be our 1/2 inch. So that means that from here, so if we go from column to column would be 1/2 inch, another column would be 1 inch, then you'd have 1/8 of an inch, which would just be barely beyond that. So if we did that, that would give us enough room, because that would mean this would be 1/2 inch, 1, 2, 3, and 1/2 up here. Up some of these as we go. And so you can see that I'm putting, a darker dot where I'm located at. Okay, I'm trying to make sure that my camera looks like it is in focus well enough. It keeps trying to pick up my hand, and so I try to keep that off of there. So that we're looking at this, so this is just a hair off. Okay, so then we come up, we go 1 and just a little bit off. And then we come back and we have that block right there. So the next thing that we need to do is to come through and do our lines. Oh, there we go. So we have our lines establishing the verticals. Okay, and then I'll actually physically rotate my paper and do these horizontal pieces right here. And then just rotate it around, and we'll come back through. And do these. Okay. Alright, so we can see our object right there. Okay, now what we should do is we should come through and do our shading. Typically we leave our top as light as possible. You come through, you see that I'm on my side. I'm getting the real width of the lead actively on its side, and then I'll rotate my paper around so it's the closest part to me. I'm going to provide a little bit heavier gradient on this. Okay, so a little bit more push to get that darker sided shade right there. I know I went over a little bit right there, but it's not too bad. Okay, there's our tall block. Next one is our triangle. So once again, I'm just going to utilize the same measurements. Okay, so I'm just going to actually utilize this because I noticed that they're all 1 1/8 inches. So I'm just going to say that this is my 1 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to mark out where they're at. 1 1/8. Okay, now I'm going to go up 1. There, right there. So that's my triangle, believe it or not, and you'll see it come and take shape as we go through and do our lines. Okay, now that's only the one that I have for right there. Okay, so I'm going to come through and do my verticals. Okay, believe it or not, that's my only vertical too. Okay, I'm going to come through and do my my depth lines. Okay, now I don't do this line right there because that line's actually hidden. Okay, so this line's actually hidden behind our main, and right now I'm going to come through and do this to that point right there. You can see how I push down and hold in order to get that line marked out, and then I rotate around to get that. See, now that line right, or that dot right there, I don't actually need. Okay, and there's my triangle, and I can come through and do some touch-ups if I absolutely need to. Okay, like right there, I just touched that up a little bit, and so you can kind of see that from there. So I'm going to sit there and now shade over. So once again, this is our dark side right here. So I'm providing as much pressure as I do see fit, trying to work our way down in. Okay, now it's not like black per se, but it is definitely darker. Okay, and then this we can do a little shading, so I'm really nice and light over this. We're just providing just a hair of shade on there. Okay, and then the last one is going to be our cylinder. Our cylinder is going to be the hardest. I'm actually going to pick the two sides. So we know the diameter is, let's see, it's 1 1/8 also. So what we do for our isometric cylinders is a little different. Okay, we're going to pick out our bottom point. There's our bottom. We're going to go our distances as normal as if we would. Okay, so there's our corner. There's the back. There's that cylinder again. So this is 2 and what, 13 16ths, 13 3/8 up. Okay, so we're going to go up 1, 2, and a little bit higher. It actually is right there. Okay, so we're going to just basically kind of offset that just a little bit. Yeah, that's 2 up. That's 2 up right there. And this is 2 up over here. So right there. So that's what that is. And then for our cylinders, roughly, we're going to be sitting there doing the 2/3 rule. So it's 2/3 the distance because it's not a true circle. Okay. And that's going to be our curvature line coming through. So it's about 2/3 of the way down is where our curve is going to be at. Okay, you can see that I'm going to adjust around. So up here for this right here, it actually ends up kind of roughly lining up on the point. Okay, we're going to come around and we're going to go 2/3 that distance over here, which is roughly right about there. I'm going to come bring that in, come back through, kind of smooth out that edge. That's going to swing through. Okay, and remember, you know, for us where we're at right now, we're not really 100% perfect. Okay, we're kind of in that, you know, still learning area. So 2/3 is right about there, 2/3 is right about there. So we're going to kind of swing that through. We're going to get this kind of lower end area done. And we're trying to just match as best we can the curvature that we did up here. Okay. And then for this, all we do is we bring that down vertically. And there's our cylinder. Now this we'd provide so cylinders, let's see, do we have one over here? We do. Okay, so cylinders, if you want to look, you can see how there's a gradient fading out. Okay, you can see that it's bright up there in the center and then kind of fades out in a conical. It's really good detailed over here. Okay, so we can see that it's real dark up here and we shade it down. Okay, and then that center So it's really dark over here and then slowly fades up to bright. Okay. Based off of where that light was at over here. Okay, and you can see that I'm just shading in right there. Okay. Remember, you can use your finger to kind of come over it to wash that out a little bit, make it look a little bit more unified over that. Okay, coming across. And there's part 1 of our sketches. Okay, and we have our tall block, our small triangle, and then we have our cylinder. All right, look forward to seeing you guys in the next part. All right, part 2. It's a little bit more unique. Sorry, I just bumped that. It's the weird H almost looking shape, almost like an archway or a kind of a gateway type looking thing. I'm going to be doing, all you're supposed to do is just sketch one of those faces or one of those diagrams, like either A, B, C, D, E, F, one of those. So you're supposed to sketch one of those views. I'm going to do the one that has A on it. And I'm just going to be looking at rough sizes, okay? So what if I'm going to assume is I'm going to assume one of those archways is a single length, okay? So if we're looking at this and I'm doing A, I'm going to mark this out to where it's 1, okay? Now there's another gap, and then there's this one over here. So this will be our gap. Looks like it's probably about 2 high. So I go 1, 2, count that up, 1, 2, count that up. And it's about double that height. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Looks like right there. Okay, and that's going to be our front face. I know I'm going to kind of roughly lighten it in so you guys can see, what it looks like. And I'll come back and do that in just a second with the darkness for it. Okay, so then this goes one back. It goes one back. Okay, so that gives us our depth for our top up here. Okay, and then we go 2 down. 1, 2. It looks like we probably go 2 back. 1, 2. And then we drop down to line up with our base over here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at right there. This point fades back. Okay, it looks like it steps across one. We're going to have that fade in. And right there. So you can kind of roughly see the outline of it. I'm now going to go through utilizing my ruler to set up my lines so they are more defined along the outside. And I'm going to go through and I'm doing my vertical lines first. Okay, here we go. My vertical line. Okay, still working on that. Okay, so now you can see more of the defined edge right there for that. Okay, we can line that up. take this coming through. Get our line right there. Oh, I missed one right here. All right. So now we're going to rotate it around just a little bit so I can finish up getting these lines. We have our horizontal right there, horizontal right there. Coming across. We got one more back over here. All right. So there's our shape. Now it's time to work on the shading of it. So once again, we're going to leave the flat parts, which would normally show as the top. We're going to leave those untouched. We're going to come and lightly shade across the sides. Lightly coming through. And we're going to have that going on right there. Oh, we can see that I forgot a line right here. We're just going to try to freehand that. You can see I don't push nearly down as hard when I first line over it. Okay. We're going to come through and give it that same shading, making sure we're flat on the graphite edge. Okay, so that's good shading right there. I did just a hair darker down at that bottom over here, because if you're looking at that, the light, if we're talking about it coming from the top, that's going to be a little bit darker than this outside, which will catch just a hair more of that. And now it's time to darken down this front face over here. So we're going to push pretty heavy on our pencil. Okay, but still trying to keep it on that edge. Moving it with shorter movements when we get closer to this area down here. Okay, really providing a little bit harder of a push. Okay, you can adjust your hands where you need them. Okay, see I've adjusted up on it to give it that little bit harder, a little bit more weight on it. And as we go through, there we go. Now we're trying to connect up all of that. And there's that shape. So this is part 2. For us right there. Okay, now we're going to go through, kind of line out that a little bit. Provide just a little bit more consistency on that shading. Right there. That's good. So now we're done with part 1, which is our 3 over here. And then our part 2, which is this is our figure on that other page. Okay? All right. We'll see you in the next one. All right, so this is getting into part 3. What we're looking at is really getting down and hammering in our shading. We're going to talk about how do you do parts that end up not lining up nicely on our grid. And we're going to kind of have to just roughly get it lined out and measured out right, and then provide our best assumption for where that part's at. So what this is looking like, it's a figure 4 on that main object. And we're going to get this landing down first. So I'm actually working on the upper square or upper rectangle. Once when I get down with this bottom, this looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, 2, 3, 4 and a half. Okay. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half this way, which means that our step up is right here. Okay, and now we're working back. Okay, now this is 1 and a half for our landing on our first step. So 1 and a half. Okay, so we see that. So this would be 1 and a half. So that means it's in kind of this area right here. Okay. Now I'm going to rough in these so I can get kind of a rough idea of what this looks like. You can see I'm lightly kind of going over where the area is at. Okay, so I can kind of see my shape taking form right there. Now from this back point, I'm going to kind of count up, but you'll see me count up on this. Okay, and then I'll just step back down this line over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we got to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. Okay, so we got to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we kind of step back to this little jogged point right here. So this would come down and line up right here for us. Okay, so that means this is 4. Or we can bring this down to where it lines up with this point right here, and then we can take that step back. So we can kind of see that it's right there, and we're going to line up right with kind of this point right here. Oh, right there, right in this area. So we're going to kind of bring that down right here, and bring this down again. Okay, you can kind of see I lined up, oh, a little off. Should be right there on that point. That's a little bit better. Good job, Mr. G. Okay. Okay, and so you see that we lined up right here, so we can just bring it up, line up with this point back over here. Okay, so we can line up there. Okay, so we're going to line up, bring that down and get our rough shape. That means our point right here comes down, and this point right over here comes down. All right, so we've established our points. Now we're going to come through and utilize our straight edge to actually give them their darkness for it. Giving them good shape, making sure as best we can we supply a nice dark line for our objects when they're vertical, and a nice dark bold outline for our main shape. Okay, you can see, oh, that one's just a little off. Oh, I started getting a little too wide, so I'm going to rotate my pencil just a little bit. I'm going to rotate back around, get these lined up. Point to point. Point to point. Point to point right there. You got this right here lined up. All right. Oh, I missed our connection right back here. And there's the rough outline of our shape. What we're going to do is we're going to give this our light shade. Means that I'm not going to supply very much pressure down. You can see that I did rotate once when I had enough of the area for this bottom edge shaded. You know, you can do that if you need to. You know, we try not to rotate too much on our shading, because then we can create some cross patterns that end up then looking a little darker than what we probably intended. But here we go. This is our shading. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to actually supply some darkness to it for these flat edges away from the our light spot. Okay. Now this is also assuming that if this was truly in a shape, that the sun was kind of looking straight down on it, if not a little bit maybe back towards this top edge, you know, giving it a little bit of brightness on that main front edge. But then really supplying the dark on this side over here. I'm going to rotate just a little bit to get that a little flatter over here. I'm going to come through, colorized all over that. Okay, we can see this. Okay, right now what I'm doing is I'm going to just, you know, do a little bit of touch up with my finger coming through. And I'm actually going to kind of shade over this area just with a little bit of rubbing. Okay, because if we're looking at this one would see our full sight or full light up here. This one would actually see possibly a little bit, but not really as much as it could. Okay, so that's part 3. I'm gonna make sure to write that down. And there we go. All right, so we're looking at now part 4. So part 4 requires us to have a drawing that's including a rectangular shape, it can be a square, a triangular shape, and then a cylinder or a curved shape. All combined, stacking on top of each other, doing that for it. It's kind of what we're kind of building up to, and then our last one will be our 2 letters fading into each other. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to set up a long skinny block, okay, and I'm going to build up from there. Okay, now these sizes don't necessarily matter too much true to form. Okay. Okay, and what I'm meaning by that is they don't necessarily have to be a true measured out shape. Okay. Okay, so what this looks like, okay, now you might have noticed all I did was I just did a long rectangle, a little bit off my line. Okay. Okay, a little off my line, but not too bad. Okay, now I shouldn't have darkened down that back line back there because more than likely it's going to be covered by something. And now I have to erase, and it'll probably leave a light line. Okay, but what this does is this actually establishes it as that light line. You can kind of still see the remnants of it. It gives me a good hint at where I should be stopping for my general block. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is now I got my rectangular block-ish. Okay, and now I'm going to start doing my triangle. Okay, so I'm going to count up some, or we're going to count over, so it's roughly right there. 3, 4. We're going to come up. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and my triangle is just going to line up and match up with that end over there. Okay, so this I can make sure to actually set up. Okay, we're going to go through, make sure this line lines up right there. Okay, and remember this is part 4, where we're combining more than just one shape. Okay, this I'm not too scared. That line will show right there. Okay, so there's my triangle. It's sitting right on top of that block. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on a curved surface. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up a midpoint. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I need to go back 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, is that 4? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3. So these are the two midpoints. Okay. So my top of cylinder, we're going to line it up right there. And that's going to be my top edge. And so we're going to curl down this way, curl down this way. We're going to actually match up that over there. So we're going to count out 4. 1, 3, 4. And that's going to fade down back here, kind of mimicking this curve. Okay. So we're going to come through, bring it down sharp. Okay, that was a little too sharp, so we're going to bring that up again. And so we're going to kind of bring it out flat a little bit more, and then bring it down. There we go. That's a better curve, Mr. G. And this we're going to kind of come up and curve that through up here. And we see that curve coming down right there. We're going to grab my pencil to erase. We're going to erase that right there. That's fine. Okay, and then we're going to mimic the same thing. So this kind of comes back down. So this would be way back over here. So we're going to kind of fade that up. And then this would come out to this point. 2, 3, 4. So that's where that would fade down to. We're kind of fading down over here. Woo! Mr. G's one too far out. That's what it is. So we're going to curve down and around like that. This is coming through. There we go. That looks more like it. Okay. And now if we're looking at this curved shape, we'll grab it. Okay. When we're looking at this, okay, when we see it isometrically like this, we see that curve. We see the curve over here, but we don't see where this vanishing point is. Okay, it kind of disappears right at about what's known as a quadrant point. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to come across roughly right there, and we're going to establish a straight line across to our circle. And that's where it's going to come out to. Okay? Okay, so that's roughly our point right there. Okay, so we can see that coming down, looks good. We see that coming down over here. Now this point would be over here, so it'd be kind of coming up and arcing through a little bit flatter. There we go. Okay, and now we come through and do our shading. You know, so it's really light right here. Okay, even lighter right here. So you know, you almost can't really even see the shading right there. Okay, you almost can't even see it. Okay, now that's the same thing that's going to happen over here. We're going to actually do kind of a dark shade for this line up over here. We're going to fade that up, kind of bring it in really bright, and then we're going to fade that back down into this little corner right here, bringing it down into a darker point right there. A little bit of shading up on top. Okay, and this face, what's nice is we can supply some pretty heavy pressure to it, and for the most part, we can't really even go wrong with that. Okay, so we're just going to go through right here. Same shading level. I'm going to rotate a little bit to match up with that line up there. Okay, we're going to supply a little bit more pressure. A wee bit more pressure right there. Okay. We can come through and do our, fingertip pressure to kind of smooth out our shading edges. You see that darker over there. So, and then the last thing is that we do need to come through and darken out this edge. And so you'll see that I'm taking little micro, small little short sketches, strokes right there. Okay, so small short strokes, kind of going over the line that I've already established for it, coming down, and then this is coming down right here. Okay, now that line looks a little bit off. It might have been up at that other point up there. But for the most part, that's roughly what our shape would look like. And we'd get a little bit darker as we come down in here. And we can fade that up into that. So that's not bad right there. Okay. So that is part 3 or part 4 out of part 5. All right, so part 5, what we're looking at doing is kind of combining letters, okay? Where one way it looks like it's one letter, the other way it looks like it's a different letter. You can do front, top, right, front, right, top. You can do all of those different combinations. What it wants us to do is it wants us to try one of these letter combinations ourselves. So it varies in between either a Z and a top is an O. That one's going to be a hard one because the O is curved, and so you got this kind of weird part that goes with it. So we're looking at that. I might do the N and the D, or the let's try the H and the C. Okay, the H front and the C top. Okay, so let's look at that and let's see what it would look like. Okay, so I'm going to focus on my H up front. Okay. So we're going to do this. We're going to pick our 2 points. Okay, so that's going to be our H. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is just 4. You can pick whatever number that you'd like. Okay. We're just lining out. We're numbering out our points. See, now I should have done probably 3 because then it would have lined up a little bit better. So I'm going to adjust those top ones down. And while we might go 4 across, I think we're going to go 3 high. 2, 3, because that gives us a little bit easier layout on the isometric paper. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down through that. Okay, and you're just going to be able to kind of see that H start to take shape for this, so we can see that that line fades back. Okay, and then we're going to include this C now on top. So the C should come and be open over here. Okay, so we're going to have that come back. Now I'm going to dot these. Okay, but once we're doing our final looking at it sketch wise, that's going to be a little bit more curve to it. Okay, so we're going to bring that C all the way down. Okay, so you can kind of see our C to take shape right there. Okay, so this would come down and line up with our stuff over here. Woo, Mystery's getting attacked by a bug. It's the fly from the debate. Hopefully you guys find that humor in it. Oh man. Especially now that it landed on my face. Okay. So we're going to see that. So you can kind of see that C up there. You can see our H kind of taking shape over here with that. Okay. And so now all our task is to do is come through. We're going to darken up these main lines for it. Okay, this is our C. Our H. You know, I'm just happy that that bug didn't go in my mouth. That would have been really awkward. Okay, our H is showing up pretty well. Look at that. H is pretty good. Coming across. Oh. See, now if I would have included that coming back through, that C would have looked a little weird. We can cap it up one and do a C on top, kind of like this, up one. So I would have to get rid of some of our lines so we see this a little bit better. So we're going to get rid of these inside lines in here so we can give ourselves that capper on top. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Okay, we're still going to include that right there, but we're going to bring this up. So that's going to come up. And we're going to get rid of this line back over here. Look at that, Mr. G, all right. Okay, so we're going to bring that up there. Okay, because that's going to be our block off for our H. As we can see back here, we'd see a line coming across right here. And then this, if we were able to see it, we'd be able to see that right there. Okay, so I'm going to bring that over. Okay, bringing that line vertical. Bringing that down. And then coming across over here. Coming down. And so we're getting our shape set up so we can see the C. So that gives us the defined H down below, the defined C up on top. It allows that to be there, so we wouldn't see that right there. We'd see this H come across right here. Okay, and we can see that coming across. So if we see that, we actually probably don't see this block right there. Okay, if that's our H coming through again. Okay? So actually we wouldn't see any of that. We would see this line right here for our C, which we can leave open because that's all one shape. We can clear out those lines right there. Clear out this line right here. And there's our C with our H. And we can bring this, we can clear that right there, clear that right there. See, now it kind of looks like an A. You know what? We'll leave that as the A. Come back in, do some shading. So we can kind of colorize this right here. Okay, you can see that I'm kind of really lightly doing this side. Okay, we're actually going to really darken in this over here because that gives us a real nice defined shape. Okay, you can kind of see that I'm really focused in on doing real nice and light. Okay, and the reason why I chose this side to do as the real dark shade is because it gives better contrast on the inside right there. Okay, we'll come back through and nice and level out that. All right. So you can kind of see, so this will be a lighter shade back in here. And there we can see our A once was an H and our C. Okay, we're going to come through, even out that shading a little bit. Even out the shading. And we can see our C and H. And this right here is the last part of our 5. All right. All right. Hopefully you guys found these helpful for you. All you have to do is ever ask for if you guys need some help with it. You know, like I said, I'm more than willing to do the shapes and do the stuff for you. Just gotta let me know, okay? Gotta let me know. But anyways, hopefully you guys liked this. We'll see you guys later, and we'll get these posted. All right. Bye.